Munchkins and viewers alike, it's me Munchie and welcome back to Q&A Part 2. I run Munchie's Place for Homeless Pets and I'm also a YouTuber, so I guess it works out pretty well when it comes to talking about animals. And today is all about Q&A pet questions, preferably the questions being asked about what I'm involved with, which is my rescue for hamsters, gerbils, and mice. And so that is what I'm answering today. I'm continuing with the last video, so if you have not seen that video yet, please go check it out. I am trying to just get out a bunch of videos because if you saw my update video, I made an announcement that I'm going to be having to push out more videos than I possibly felt comfortable with in the first place, but now that I don't have a place of work, this is pretty much going to be my job, which I usually say that this is my hobby, but now this is a job. But it's also a good opportunity for you guys to stay entertained at home and to see more videos of me and the animals that are in my care, like the ones behind me. Say hi, Luna! Luna, do you like it when I talk like this? Yeah. And then Ollie. Hi. Hi.
Hello there, my sweethearts, yes.
Now she wants attention. Oh great, what have I started? So again, I'm not saying the names, I'm just showcasing the screenshots here on the screen, and there might be some questions that aren't related to the video I was trying to make at all, or there could be repeat questions. And if I do happen to answer a repeat question, I'm so sorry. Some of these might not get stuck in my head that, oh, I've already answered that, so it might be repeated, but thank you guys for understanding. How do you sanitize your hamster supplies after each use between all your hammies? Whenever we do a cage clean, there is some items that can still be inside the enclosure because they're not that dirty, and or the hamster scent is on there, but everything else usually gets soaked into the sink. And I use Ivory soap, which is very mild and very light. I have sensitivities for my skin, so I don't use harsh chemicals or really stinky products. I just can't handle that. So Ivory is usually what I use, and or fragrance-free type of dish soap. Just lightly though, because it just bubbles up very quickly. Or I do two methods when it comes to the wood. When it comes to the wood, you either bake it in the oven. I do 210 for about 20 minutes or so. But if it does contain bark, like a lot of my Trixie stuff did, and Rosewood's products that I have from the United Kingdoms, I usually let those bake in the oven. I have yet to talk about this. Maybe this is a good opportunity to talk about this in a future video, but sea ticks were actually at our rescue, and they are an outside source that came via food, and it was horrible, so they kept going to the wood, which is insane, and so we had to throw out a bunch of wood. So ever since then, I have been very, very careful to sanitize everything. And that happened over a year ago, and it only lasted for, I want to say, a month. And thankfully we got that solved very quickly once we knew what the source of that was. It was definitely not the bedding, it was the food. But that was not fun. But that's how I usually sanitize my items, is if they can soak in the sink, let them. If they need to bake in the oven, let them. And there's just some items that are just way too overused, like for instance with grass hides or hay hides or anything like that. They're just a one and done deal, but what I do is I bake the straw and make sure that it's completely sanitized, and then I give it to the gerbils because the gerbils love that material to just chew through. So if they are used by hamsters and I was able to get a few uses out of them, then the gerbils go nuts over them and they love them. What advice would you give to someone who wants to work at a small animal rescue or start their own? So for animal rescues, unfortunately, if you want to work there, meaning you want to either have it be a paid job or maybe a volunteer job, let me just talk about pay jobs. So when it comes to working at an animal shelter, you're getting full-time hours, but you're getting the minimum wage. And it's unfortunate, but you do have benefits. They do give you benefits, at least for the rescues and shelters around here. They do provide benefits, but a lot of the smaller nonprofits, private funding rescues, they only run on volunteers. So if you do want to volunteer, just look around your area. Pet Finder is a great place for reputable rescues, and just check out their foster program, see if they want small animals like you said. I don't know if small animals you mean like small rodents, hamsters, gerbils, and mice, guinea pigs, rabbits, ferrets, you name it. But if you want to do more than that, of course there is the regular cat and dog foster program, and that's really fun. But a lot of these rescues around here, they don't really have jobs available. There will be once in a blue moon some staffer leaves and then they need to fill in that position, but the majority of people, for instance, if you want to clean kennels and interact with the animals, that is mostly volunteer based and you don't get paid. But advice maybe meaning that you want to start in on the rescue rescue and just get a feel for it. A lot of cleaning. I want to say you really start at the bottom of a rescue and you kind of work your way up. So you're going to be most likely interacting with the animals, cleaning up after them. You might not, or you might interact with people who want to adopt the animal if it's a in-person shelter where you can go and view the animal, or you might actually be communicating via social media. And there's just so many different jobs at a rescue, so many different coordinators functioning here and there. You really got to look into it on your own time. This is kind of a cheating question. You're only supposed to ask one question, but they also say, how does someone get into the rescue business? If you have a passion, you can easily get in. If you need resources, rescues would love to work with you. If you go to any sort of event that has a rescue that's planned on being there, you can learn information from their booth there, and that's a really good opportunity to get more insight because they're trying to reach out to the general public about, hey, do you want to be a part of our rescue? Or hey, do you want to adopt from our rescue? So that's a good place to start. But really, the way to get started into the rescue business is just following a good example, and those examples will be your local shelters. There is good examples on YouTube like Scott's Animals, the LA Guinea Pig Rescue. I guess you could take my rescue for example, just following along on what I do, listening to little tidbits here and there of what I do. I think that's hopefully good advice for you. Opinion on wheels that file nails. Example, how the 12-inch silent runner has a sandy track. So there is pros and cons to these wheels, but overall I have decided not to use sand tracks because unfortunately if you put the sand track in there to file nails, you're still having an abrasive surface being pushed down upon when they go to put their paws on it, and that could cause friction and that could cause sores and inflammation. So sandy tracks, even though they might not be as abrasive, it's kind of hard to exactly tell, and I haven't actually had a sandy track from Silent Runner, but I temporarily had a sand track that I DIY'd. I used sandpaper that you find on the bird aisle. It's kind of like the bird DIY perch kit that I tried because I wanted to file Molly's nails. If you remember Molly, she was here at the rescue and she had very long nails, but instead of having normal long nails, she had one that was a weird growth that made her nail very long and thick, and so it was very hard to trim her because she was so very squirmy. But we decided to at least attempt this way because we couldn't naturally hold her. But there's one day she was actually very well behaved and we were able to clip her nails. However, I would recommend if you do have a hamster, especially a dwarf because they're so prone to this, with very long fingernails, you must be secure when holding them. If you clip too far up accidentally, it can be really bad. So either leave it to the vets or have a lot of confidence in yourself and make sure your hamster isn't as squirmy if you're going to be trimming their nails. How often should you change out hides or redecorate your hamster's home for a better enrichment? So there's sometimes when it goes on for a month and they're completely fine inside their enclosure. There will be some hamsters half a month that would like some more enrichment, and so sometimes I would go in at half a month and then switch out their hides, but usually it's with every deep clean. Now for my rescue, since I am always so busy, I have so many things to manage, I try my best to make it as easy on them as possible to include enrichment, do timely events and things and cleanings and feedings. I have my whole calendar list in there about what I need to do for that day, so that is what I do with the hides. Is it normal for hamsters to chirp and squeak? Yes, oh my gosh, yes. I miss them chirping and squeaking. Oh, I miss it so much. So when I had my rescue at the end of 2018 and beginning of 2019, I had some hamsters chirp between each other, where it was the cutest thing ever, where like one would squeak and then the other would perk up and they hear them and they'd be like squeak squeak, and then the other one would scurry around and then run around their cage, perk up and go squeakity squeak squeak. It was the most cutest thing ever. I haven't really heard them squeaking ever since. I want them to squeak. But yes, chirping actually indicate a few things where they could either be happy, excited, surprised. There's been times when you open up a hide and they weren't expecting you to actually open up the hide and they get kind of nervous. So it's not really chirping other than chattering is what I call it. And they will chatter at you that, hey, oh, what are you doing? Who are you? Who are you? It's kind of like a what's going on type of chattering. But yes, these are all normal behaviors. It's just how they express themselves. Is it okay to use pine cones for foraging toys? Yes, it is. I've heard some people use them for that, but I also know pine for bedding can be dangerous. It has toxic things for hamsters. So pine cones are not pine wood. So that's completely fine to be using pine cones as a chew toy because it's not wood. Pine wood, however, produces toxins in the wood, and so that's why pine wood is not safe unless it's kiln dried. Is it okay for my gerbil to not run on his wheel? Perfect question, just because we do have gerbils here at the rescue. Gerbils can use their wheels, however, lots of gerbils do not choose to use their wheels because it might not be very natural to them, or they were not acclimated in the beginning to a wheel, or maybe they were just on the wrong wheel size and they don't feel comfortable jumping back on a wheel. So we have two different pairs of gerbils at the rescue. Frida and Freya, which love their wheel. Oh my gosh, they love it so much. They love running on it. And then there is Jack and Gus Gus, who we were told are fat little boys before receiving them that didn't really use their wheel. And once we received the wheel, it was way too small, and honestly way too small width-wise. It was one of the weirdest wheels I had ever seen that made me think, wow, is this a mouse wheel? Because of the width of the wheel is just not doable for gerbils. But they were not runners, and when I put a wheel inside their enclosure, they just used it to pile a bunch of bedding onto it and to kind of create their own tunnel systems. But gerbils are very natural to burrowing, and burrowing underground more so than hamsters. So they spend the majority underground rather than on the surface, whereas you see Syrian hamsters like to be on the surface and like to be out and active, but they do still have a burrow underground that's at least 2 feet in the wild, and they will have a nest down there, and they will have different places to store their food. But they do like to be active, but gerbils are active underground. When my Roborosky is running on her wheel, she sometimes spins around the wheel. When she tries to stop, she falls. Is she okay? Because she keeps doing it. So I don't know the circumstances exactly of if your hamster has a new wheel, if your hamster is new to just you owning your hamster. I mean, it could be asking these questions. The wheel might be too small or too big or too slick. There are so many different factors, but there is a period of time when your hamster doesn't know how to use its wheel properly, and they might not understand how to completely stop without harming themselves. Hamsters, no matter on what style wheel, whether it be a classic wheel or a treadmill wheel, aka flying saucer, they can still spin out. You gotta make sure that they don't spin out onto something dangerous. So a lot of the times people are using paper bedding that can catch them, but don't have, if you're nervous of them running too fast and not knowing how to stop, make sure that they're not around anything that can harm them, that is sticking out or could be potentially poking them if they do happen to fly off. But if you notice after a while, your hamster will start to adjust their speeds and or will just start to know when is a good time to stop on the wheel. Now, if your hamster keeps doing this over and over and over again for a long, prolonged period of time, please remove that wheel and try to look at other options. So some wheels, they have a slicker surface than others. That could be why. You might just have to switch them out. For a while, my Roboroskis, and especially this specific species is the fastest hamster in the world, they tend to not do very well on silent spinners at first, but then they start to get better as time goes on, and I have been able to use silent spinners for dwarfs and Roboroskis. Syrians! There has been a few chances where I've seen like a very young adolescent Syrian not know how to use a wheel because they never used a wheel before, and the first time I saw the poor hamster fly off of the wheel, honestly I laughed, but I also was hoping they'd be okay, and of course I checked them over and they were completely okay, but they did not know what a wheel was. Isn't that kind of sad if you think about it? But just make sure to observe, and if you need to replace it, please replace it. It can be normal at first. It's just like when I did the analysis with the car. If you're not used to driving in a car and you hit the accelerator, it might take a while to get used to it because all cars are different when it comes to accelerating. Some are very sensitive when you hit the gas pedal. Some you have to really push your damn foot down on it. It's all different. You just gotta observe and learn, because all this is a learning curve and you learn as you go. Why is aspen bedding good for small animals? Aspen bedding is one of the safer woods because it doesn't produce any toxins that can be harmful to your hamster. So because the hamster, gerbil or mouse, is a very small creature, it has smaller lungs, and unfortunately these toxins are very strong, especially in cedar and pine that's not kiln dried, and this could cause respiratory issues, problems, complications. They could develop a sneeze, they can develop a little cough. Yes, I've heard them cough before and it's kind of scary to think about it. But just like with dust baths, which can cause the same same respiratory response as in toxic woods, Aspen is very safe to use and should honestly be one of the only beddings out there when it comes to wood. So if you see anywhere where it says softwood shavings and it doesn't list that they are a specific type of wood, don't use it. If they say pine, look for something that says kiln dried pine, because kiln literally dries out the wood, which makes it safe to use because toxins are no longer going to seep out of the wood and harm your small animal. So that's why Aspen is a good wood to use if you choose to use wood shavings. I say if you want enrichment, use a mixture of bedding. Is it okay to have a smaller cage than the minimum requirement if the hamster can get out of the cage whenever it wants? I ask this because I have a hamster with a small cage and he can get out whenever he wants. I've been trying to get a new one, but there are only cages smaller than the one he has. Anyways, I'll try to buy a new one. If you are someone who lives, say for instance, in places that I've mentioned previously in some videos, if you say live in Japan or the Philippines or Mexico, some of these enclosures that you find on your market in your area are going to be probably garbage. And if you can't find an enclosure, try looking for a fish tank, because in the place you're at, most likely fish are very, very popular worldwide. So you can probably find a fish tank that is big enough. So I would recommend at least going and finding a 40-gallon breeder tank or a 30-gallon breeder tank if you have a dwarf hamster, because of the height difference. Syrians should definitely have a 17-inch or more rather than like a 13 or 14-inch, which is what the breeder is. But if you're saying that you just open your cage and your cage has access to your room and there's nothing in your room that your hamster can chew up, for instance, cords, toxic materials that you might have left behind, food, hopefully not food in there, just make sure if you do have your hamster free roaming, which honestly scares me because they can just get inside of your walls very easily. I mean, Erin's animal is one of the people that let her hamster go free roaming for a bit, made sure everything was fine, but then her hamster ended up going into a space she didn't even know she had and into a wall. So personally, I don't recommend it. There are different types of structures in different parts of the world where it's a lot more secure than like places such as this big room here. It might be a very small room, I just don't know. But to me, I feel like that would be safe. I wouldn't trust a hamster just roaming around. I would try to create a playpen outside. If you can't order from Amazon, try to do that. If there is any sort of shelving, clear shelving units on Amazon where they claim that they're, you know, clear plastic shelving units, but you can picture actually setting up a playpen, try to do something like that where you can at least secure your hamster in a small area until you're able to get something bigger. Because right now, this is what you're doing, and this is just kind of my advice to you and your style of care as of right now. But if they are free roaming in a bedroom, I mean, technically you are providing them with a lot of space. But again, I'm just very fearful of just keeping them safe. Is there an alternative to a 40-gallon tank? Alternative? Well, if you're asking for, is there an alternative to 648 square inch of floor space like the 40-gallon breeder tank? Yes, there is also the 30-gallon breeder tank, which the only difference is the height, as I previously mentioned. There is the 200 quart Sterilite bin cage you can find at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, you name it, but that is very close to a 40-gallon breeder, and also the Preview 528 cage is also very close, just because it's within the 600 square inch range. How should I choose what kind of hamster I want to get? It's all based on your activity and lifestyle, and you really got to be doing the research on your own because these species are very different from one another. Do you want one that you can easily handle, or do you want one that's a watch hamster? So basically, I guess you can say that's kind of like a game, a yes or no game, and then you follow the lines, just answer yes, no. Do you want a watch hamster? Yes. Okay, so if you want a watch hamster, a great watch hamster might be a Roboroski. And because of this, you get to ask, well, which Roboroski would you prefer, male or female? And then it will just list all the little benefits of, say for instance, why a male is better, or say for instance, why a female is better. If you happen to get a male, you can probably guarantee yourself they're not going to be pregnant. There is unfortunately people who have been in my hamster groups that have said that their new hamster that they got confirmed to be pregnant and they had a litter of pups. Now, if you really want to avoid having an accident like that, if you're rescuing or just getting, say for instance, a hamster from the pet store, which I would hope you would think adoption first or do ethical. but you just gotta look more into it about which hamster is the right lifestyle for you. Or we could say, hey, do you want an active hamster? Yes. So are you looking for one you can easily handle? Are you looking for one that is slower, a lot calmer? I mean, each species have different personalities and moods and activity levels depending on their age, their gender, you name it. So for instance, if you did want an active hamster, I would suggest a Syrian hamster. And if you wanted a hamster that was a lot calmer, I would suggest a male hamster, because females go into heat every 4 to 6 days and they have huge amounts of activity levels. So again, you gotta just look into each species of hamsters, create yourself a list to see, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this, and then go through their attributes and see which one might be a better fit for you. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you did like this video, hit like to show support, comment down below with anything you'd like to say, and subscribe if you're new here and would like to become a part of the Munchkin family. So thanks everybody, and I'll see you in the next Q&A video and videos on this channel. And have a great, safe rest of your day. Bye!